Funds are rocket fuel for entrepreneurial businesses, the great enabler, and it's been discussed already much today. We'll be discussing grants, equity, and touching on debt with our panel of experts, who are Richard Spilsbury from Linkstone Advisory, a corporate development, finance, and advisory specialist working with a variety of businesses. Ollie Cox from Foresight Investment Specialist. Ollie has responsibility for the newly launched 50 million Foresight Southwest Fund. And Ben Masheder, Innovate UK, part of UK Research and Innovation, the UK's innovation agency. So please welcome up Richard, Ollie and Ben.
Thanks, Steph, and welcome to our panel. Is this working? Can you hear me? Yep. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Right, all working very well indeed. So let's begin with some in-principle points, Richard, if I may. Some entrepreneurs may feel their business has 4 pots that they can choose at various stages. There's bootstrapping, and we're hearing a really interesting example of bootstrapping from Image Angel tomorrow, how that has evolved. Perhaps grants, and I think grants arguably are an underplayed element of finding value for businesses. Bank debt, of course, and again, may possibly underplayed. There's maybe a slight concern about debt in some quarters. And of course, and we've heard quite a bit already about this, equity-based. It's investment in early to mid-stage businesses which can yield value, give you, as Steph has mentioned, the rocket fuel. But Richard, there are multiple variations. Talk about some options where you've been working with clients where it's been some blend or some variants of those 4 basic approaches.
Yeah, I think each option works really well at different stages. And what's important, I think, is to try and align your business with the funding options that are available. So, for example, grants will be very effective at an early stage of the business. Then in terms of finance, then once you're say, post-revenue, then some of the financing options that become available might be asset-backed financing. And then there'll be an element of EIS investors, angel investors.
I was going to say, could you just slightly unpack, for those who may not be so familiar, some of the terminology? EIS?
So EIS is a tax scheme which is very beneficial for investors. And so making sure that the business is aligned with those interests is important. And then there will be early stage venture. Then there will be later stage venture. And then there will be private equity. And somewhere along the line, there will also be sort of more traditional bank lending. So each of those options become available at different points in the development of a business. So what's really key is trying to make sure that when you're looking for funding, you're going to the right people at the right time, and you're aligning your business and the messaging of your business to match the funder's interests.
And perhaps just pick up, anonymised if you wish, a recent example where a company you've worked with had thought perhaps one route, and you've advised them to go another route or a blend. Is that?
So one company who had initially they had some investment from angel investors. That went pretty well. They wanted to scale and grow, so they thought, right, we'll go and find some private equity. But private equity or even venture capital wasn't available because they weren't at break even. So to help them have the working capital to continue to grow the business, they've taken on asset-backed financing. So that's borrowing off the back of sales that they've made. So that means that they've got more cash coming into the business quicker. Now, initially, very often when you go to the market, you'll get some not great terms. But once you've established the business, you've developed your credit rating, then you can get some much better terms to operate on. And then with that scale then enables you to get to the position where you can look at a more mature investor, so for example, like Ollie's group.
Yeah. Let's come to Ollie and then Ben on this point, and perhaps Richard join subsequently. Is it the case that there is more capital out there through various different routes than entrepreneurs are realising? Or is it the other way around? Is it that there's not the money to fund the growth? Ollie, your experience, the availability of the funds which you directly are responsible for, but slightly more generally about capital supply.
Yeah, so we've got a variety of pools of capital that sort of to Richard's point, can address and help businesses at different points in the life cycle. So at the very earliest stage, we've got pools of capital that can help possibly even pre-revenue businesses. In the early stages, might be a seed funding round, where it's a growth equity injection, all the way up to pools of capital that can help founders and business owners realise money for their shareholding, and it might be a sort of full retirement sale and the cashing out of a business making 4 or 5 million of profitability. So I've got quite a wide range of different funds to suit businesses along the lifespan. I would say, generally speaking, there's more capital out there than founders and teams think, but it's just because there are so many pools of capital that have such different requirements and address different parts of the market. I think what often happens is you're slightly blinded by the options, and it's such almost a muddle to get through to find the right person to speak to.
So in some respects, there may even be sort of option paralysis. There are so many different choices. I suspect for many entrepreneurs, there's even just the knowledge gap. You don't know what you don't know, which then takes us back to advisors. Ben, for Innovate UK, you're in, well, each of you are unique, but you're unique in a different way, in that it's grants. No, not you personally.
In a good way.
In a good way. No,
Yeah.
unique is always good, so it's a question of where on the scale. But as an organisation, got out of that one, did I get away with it? Who knows? But a combination of grants in some cases, but also equity positions as well. Talk about the bigger point about the availability of capital first, and then come into how you operate and your criteria.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if anyone knows the British Business Bank in here.
Quick show of hands.
Yeah. Oh, fabulous.
That's reasonably good.
Anyone read their reports? Yeah.
Do you have a digest, or you don't? You're not going to tell
I
us
can
all?
digest very quickly.
Yeah.
Basically, that knowledge gap is what's top of the list, flagged every time as where there needs to be an improvement. And that's nationally, not just in the region we're in now. So there's knowledge gap of what the options are, where to find them, who to talk to. And there's people like myself, where I sit in Innovate UK Business Growth. We can provide that unbiased opinion, offer guidance on how to just navigate what's out there. So if I come back to, that's the first thing, have a look at those reports. There's one coming out next week online.
Are they, dare I ask, well, I'm going to, are they digestible for those who are perhaps...
Do you like spreadsheets?
No, well, I do. Yes, I do, but I'm not going to admit it. But those who are perhaps, and I don't mean this at all patronisingly, those who are less au fait with financial terms and structures, is it apparent? Is there a sort of navigation path to help explain the options?
Very good point. So the website for British Business Bank does have some some media notes, some copy that is given to more broad stream outlets to help people guide them towards the deeper dives, which these reports are. They are very in-depth because that's half the job of the bank. So yeah, the British Business Bank website, have a look at it. Lots of options, lots of guidance on there, fully government-backed, if that's a good thing. I could talk...
Well, it means it's secure, taking no view on government, so at least it's about as secure as it gets if it's government-backed.
You'd hope so. Talking about Innovate UK, where we sit. So you've heard about when businesses might not be right for some finance and funding options there. Grants is a lot of the work that we do supporting businesses. As much of the one-to-one support, grants have a certain place. And that is the bits where other people won't touch you. It's too risky. It could be where government wants to force direction of travel for business thought, for their development, for them to spend their money. It could be like Innovate UK, to that R&D, that early stage, really risky R&D, before even the most loose spent angel, I can't think of the right word.
What does that mean?
Angel investors are the very early stage ones who might back you before you even got past the idea. They might like your idea so much they might give you some money then. And then they might back you again as you grow. So that would be the earlier stage equity you might find. Grants are there to encourage that behaviour. Government understands how valuable R&D is, but they need to encourage it. They can't just say, oh, it's great, go and do more of it. They provide that backing, and that's where the grant's coming.
So this is perhaps simplified, but you are both a conduit and a filter of grants. And so talk us through the process. And perhaps, Richard, if you pick up, if you've had experience advising clients about grants, but talk us through the quantum of grants. What's the sort of de minimis levels? What's the maximum? But also time, effort, faff of getting grants.
Faff high, time high.
Oh, good. Going well so far.
So there's different types of grants. Okay, so there's the day-to-day business grants, I would say, and that's the kind of stuff for putting solar panels on your roof or for growing your business in one way or another. They will often be given out by local authorities, say, or other bodies like that.
Such as Invest in Bristol and Bath. Yeah.
So it's the local, so the combined authority have some money as well at times. There's a green business grant, something it's called. That's literally solar panels. But then there's the sort of other stuff we're talking about. And those day-to-day ones, I don't tend to be a huge amount of funding of finance. Everything can be sort of a couple of £1,000s up to 20, 40, 50. I wouldn't think many would go beyond that. Innovate UK, we will start at about 25 grand and go up to about 3 million.
That's a hell of a range. Can you give an example of the 25 and you're amongst friends, roughly the example of maybe the 2 million, if not 3 million? What types of businesses and business need?
Sure. The earlier stage ideas, so the feasibility studies, the bit just to get you to prove if something's worth investing more in. That's that sort of early stage, and that can be 25, 50k. We're not sure exactly where it's going to land now. It's sort of skipped around those values. It might go up to maybe even 100. We're not sure yet. But that is lower, this is all relative, effort to apply for, lower time and other commitments. And it's even that there's a percentage of it which is 100%, some of them are 100% funded. So that's a grant, go away and do your good stuff. Some of it's 70%, some of it's in arrears, some of it's up front. So there's lots of different things. Those earlier stage ones can be a real mix, but lower requirements all around. As you get bigger, it's like anything. If you talk to small investors, angels, they might just want an email every quarter to see where their money's gone. If you get some of Ollie's money, he's going to want to see reports. He's going to want to come to your board. He's going to want to see every detail. And that's the same with someone like Innovate. This is taxpayer money. You've got to be prepared to earn it. And so,
have you funded anything at that sort of quantum?
3 million.
3 million?
Yeah, even bigger. But it depends.
Would you like to share, or is that private? Types of business, if not named.
Sure.
Yeah.
To be honest, the capital-intensive businesses are the ones that tend to get the larger funds. So there's something called Clean Maritime Demonstrator Competition, CMDC, and that typically it's for maritime investment into boats, tech for boats, tech for harbours. That is heavy cap. Lots of capital required. So they don't start anything less than $1 million or $2 million.
Right.
And then they go up.
Right. And I think one of the companies that Innovate UK has granted to is Melendo Tech, who are talking this afternoon on PitchCase. Simon, are you here?
I saw his name somewhere.
He will be honest for 3:30 if he isn't currently. Come to you in a second, Ollie, about the fund, and a little bit like this piece, just talk a little bit about the types of companies, range, criteria, and so on. But Richard, have you advised on grants? Is that part of the offering of Linkstone Advisory in terms of your broader advisory capability?
I think we like to think that we're there for the journey for clients rather than just for a transaction. There are plenty of people out there who will take your money for a transaction, but that might not be the right answer for that part of your journey. If you take equity too early, then you'll give away too much. So it's quite important to be quite strategic about it. We use databases, so we do a scan for potential grants, we do a scan for potential debt, and we've got databases to identify active investors and in any particular category. And investors very often will act within a category. And so we'll do that as part of the review that we can provide for clients. Now with the grants and also with tax credits and also with bank debt, a lot of people will take commission for that. Unavoidably, it's part of the ecosystem. But if we ever receive any commission, we always pass that back to the client directly, or we suggest that it's passed back to the client in the terms that they receive directly. So
from your point of view, it's part of a longer-term relationship building as well.
Yeah, it's
presumably
part of the longer-term relationship, and we don't think that we should be incentivised to do anything that might be not in our clients' interests in the long term.
And perhaps for those of you who are thinking, well, grants, that may well be fine. First of all, you've had a sense of the quantum, it's perhaps up to 3 million, maybe even more in certain cases. The other example comes, and it's the second time today I'm going to mention him, Elon Musk's businesses cumulatively have had, wait for this, 38 billion in grants, tax assistance and government contracts since inception. So much for anti-governmentalism. Interesting, isn't it? $38 billion, that is. Right. Ollie, tell us about the fund. When was it established? To be honest, more importantly, why was it established? What sort of companies are you dealing with and that?
Yep, so this is the new Southwest Fund, which launched November last year with cornerstone funding from the Devon Pension Fund. So that was the initial 50 million. And actually, as of March earlier this year, we had another 50 million come in from the Avon Pension Fund to take it to 100 million in total. It's the 7th of our regional funds. So we've done this elsewhere in the country and sort of got quite a good track record now. And the idea being really, local money going into invest in local businesses. It's growth investing. So ultimately we're looking to grow jobs and hopefully grow the businesses over time as well. So that's the sort of thesis, I suppose, in terms of how the types of business we're looking to invest in. It's typically businesses making between $500,000 and $5 million of profit. Completely across sectors, so we'll look at construction to software to consumer, completely flexible capital, so it could be money going in for growth and we can take minority positions, or it can be, as I say, full retirement sales where we might end up with a 70-80% of a business as a result. And it's permanent capital, so like some funds where there's a set time period and we have to return cash to our underlying investors, we've not got that. It's open-ended. And so we can align our investment period to the wants and needs of the management team or the other shareholders.
Would you mentioned about the sort of typical profit range. Would you get involved in earlier stage or at least less profitable businesses or even pre-rev businesses? Or is that off the scale for you?
No, we would. So we've got, as well as the regional funds up and down the country, we've also got sort of venture and growth funds, which can be applied across the whole of the UK and Ireland. And that can be, typically at the lower end, we're looking to put 1.5–2 million of capital to work, all the way up to maybe 10 million. And those can go into businesses that are sort of pre-revenue but on the cusp of commercialisation.
Right.
It's a bit of a grey area, but we like to see maybe line of sight of 1 million of ARR or 2 million of turnover, depending on the makeup of the income stream.
And how's it going so far in the Southwest for you with that fund?
Yeah, no, it's with the new fund. We've deployed some capital out of it already, which was follow-on funding into a business we'd already invested in out of our early stage fund. So there can be a bit of overlap between these different pools of capital, but we're seeing lots of new activity, which is great, and a really sort of what I hadn't appreciated whilst I've returned to the Southwest, as it were, but I hadn't appreciated the size of the sort of early stage venture community, which is great.
Yeah, the closer you get to this community, the more you realise the value that is being created and is there to be unlocked as well. Richard, when you're talking with clients, how do you advise them about what to expect post-funding, whatever that funding is, whether it's grants or equity or even bank debt, which we should touch on? They have to culturally attune to being in a different world. It's not just they've got the cash, they've got to operate differently.
Yes, I think that there are a couple of elements to it. One is sort of operationally and how the business is run, which might be the reporting side of things. And sometimes that can be good disciplines brought to bear in the business. And certainly if done effectively. Let's remember that venture governance is very different from corporate standard governance, and you don't want to do what PLCs have to do, otherwise you'll kill your business pretty quick. So there is that, but part of that goes hand in hand with a professionalisation of the management. In terms of building a senior management group where you're delegating authority, you're encouraging people to make decisions so that the business can continue to scale. Because if the founder acts like an octopus trying to get into everything, then they'll strangle the business. So that's a natural sort of, there's a natural element of helping the business grow and develop. That's one side. The other side, I think, is very important to have a sort of a long-term strategy around investors and how you serve investors, because you don't want to take a whole load of money and then have a down round or have a whole set of unrealistic expectations. So having a sort of a long-term plan about how you're going to build and align your interests with the interests of your shareholders, I think is key.
Ben, and I don't know if this applies to you, but I'll start with you. Let's have a go. Many times, typically, when companies seek investment, it's for scaling. It's maybe, if it's manufacturing, it's for plant. If it's for product, it's about product enhancement. If it's sales-based, it's about team building out, etc. Have you had experience where companies, or indeed investors, have also said, well, you need to be upgrading your management team? To pick up Richard's last point there, that actually that, as an enabler of growth, that is the secret rocket fuel of all companies, is its management capability.
What we're trying to do a lot of the time is get that business to be self-sufficient with a grant. We want them to be commercial entities that are capable of doing everything from doing the CFO roles, doing the CMO roles, doing the COO roles. If they haven't got that in place, they're not going to be successful and they're not going to scale as fast as they can. So every funding application, pretty much, apart from really the early stage ones, want to know how you're going to get to market, how you're going to fill those holes that might, and quite understandably, exist within an early stage business. You know, not every small business beyond the sort of 3 and 4 sort of people businesses, you know, where everyone does everything, there's going to be roles, and they're not going to be able to cover all roles and do all roles at once. So yeah, it's going to be, where are your hires? How are you going to do that? Where does that come in your plan? That's part of pretty much any growth strategy for any business. We want to see that. Basically, a grant application most of the time is a business plan on paper. And if you writing out a business plan on paper in a structured way, which these grant applications can be, can help you identify where you're strong and where you're not so strong, when you finally look back over it afterwards.
Ollie, we'll come to audience questions in a sec. Ollie, that point about, perhaps in your case, of equity being a source of upgrading the quality and capability range of a management team or indeed a company. Is that how key a factor is that for you?
I think the people aspect is almost always top, or certainly top 3 of the types of things we look at when we're going into an investment. Often some of the value we can bring is to help build out that team. So we work with the founder.
You will know people.
We'll know people, and I think by having an investor on board, it often gives maybe people who have been in larger organisations before a little bit of a bit of comfort when they're going in, that actually this sort of earlier stage venture, has the backing of a Foresight, and it does help with the hiring process we find. And so it's always, I think we'd work with the team to identify the gaps and what skills are required. We'd never go in and foist people on other teams. You've got to make sure the chemistry's there, but we'd certainly always help to build out the gaps that are there.
And Richard, the slightly more general point there as well, which is that investors aren't just cash, they are also access to markets, relationships, partners and so on. Perhaps give an example of that, of how you've been able to effectively put a source of capital which is, quote, more than just cash. Has that have been part of your thinking?
It can definitely be part, and certainly one of the things that you'll potentially talk about to the right investor. With all of this, it's important to try and get in a position where you can pick and choose your funding, so it works on your terms rather than theirs. And having some competitive tension is never a bad thing. So one of the things you might be looking for in that context is ask about where the synergies are. Ask about, if you've got Ollie at the other side of the table, Ollie, how are you going to help your business? What sort of network? What introductions?
What portfolio?
What can you do?
Yeah.
What else is in your portfolio that might add?
Yeah.
And so those are really valid questions. At the same time, you also want to be in control of things as much as you can. And so ultimately, if you're selling, for example, at the end to private equity, then one of the things that you'll need to do is you'll need to put in place the succession team if you're going to be stepping back from the business. And so having a good plan about how you're going to deliver on that, because otherwise that could detract ultimately from price and the cash that you get.
Yeah, thank you. Couple of questions. We've talked a little bit about funding already with 2 or 3 of the speakers previously. Some questions, please. You can ask for a friend, say, you know, maybe it isn't you specifically, but if companies were to wish X, what might it be? So there's a question, a hand in the middle here. And again, if you could say your name and company, please, or organisation.
Hi, my name is Kyra. I run a local influencer account in Bath and an organic social media agency. So you mentioned about there are these different stages of funding, right? And there are some where you need to be like 1 million revenue per year. What would you advise a company where they don't need pre-seed or seed investment, but they're not far enough in annual revenue to get those higher funding elements? What would your biggest piece of advice be before you get to that stage?
So you don't need the pre-seed funding because the business is profitable, or and you're just not quite of the scale yet?
Yeah, exactly. So it's not a business that has many fixed costs, right? You grow with the amount of clients you have.
Yeah.
But you're not at that stage to then get further investment because you don't tick enough of the boxes. How would you tick enough of the boxes?
Yeah, I think if you've got cash and money you can draw upon, I think it's understanding the best way to utilise that such that, well, you can reduce the line of, you know, the time horizon to get to that figure, let's say. So yeah, make sure that's going into people who can genuinely help, often people that can genuinely help sell the product or sell the service to get there. And also I think it's, if you do have some proof points of commercialization, not just having one or two, you know, they don't need to be big revenue drivers, but if you've got 10 rather than 2, obviously that's a much better position to be in. So not always focusing on sort of quantity in terms of a pound figure, but quantity in terms of a range of customers is helpful as well.
Okay, so like diversifying income streams.
Yeah.
Diversifying income streams, and it may be at an earlier to mid stage. It may be that bank debt, which we've not talked about, may be appropriate if the reasonably regular cash is there. Richard, do you want to come in on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting because, you know, very often in specific sectors there are very specific solutions and contexts. So, for example, in the influencer industry, then there's a range of additional debt financing products available which aren't available elsewhere because you've got recurring revenue streams in many cases. And also that there's quite a lot of consolidation happening in the market at an earlier stage than in other sectors. So in terms of getting your best value, I think it would be a case of sitting down and working out where the business is and mapping out a plan and looking at what transaction values are like and where you want to push. Are you happy to take on the risk and the commitment and the hard work to get to the next stage? And do you think you can get there? Not just by growing the scale of the business, but also improving the maturity of the business so it's more viable.
Thank you. One more question, please. Right in the middle. That'd be a joy to get the mic to. No, I mean, perfectly fine. We're not seatist about our questioners, if that is a term.
Thank you.
It is now.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Agatha. I run a legal tech startup for creators.
Called RevFlow.
Called
and
RevFlow.
You'll be pitching and pitch case for sometime after 3:30. Agatha, welcome.
Thank you. So my question is, there's that well-known statistic that for every £1 invested in businesses, only 2% goes to female-led startups. And I suppose, other than coming to wonderful events like this and pitching, obviously, do you have any specific advice for female founders fundraising?
Great question. And indeed, have you had direct experience through your various channels of funding female-led businesses?
I hope the answer is yes to that.
So one who, you know, typically at the early stages got pushed back, but I think, you know, having supportive team around you, virtual or, you know, professional, to help you push on. She's now she last raised 25 million for about 10% of her company. She's well on the way, hopefully, AI permitting, to having a unicorn in San Francisco. So there are those success stories, but it would be naive to say that it's not difficult. But there are communities and there are networks, you know, very often organised by women, but more broadly, so an organisation like Astia that I do work with, which is supporting female founders, and another one, Ursula's introduced me, she's here as well. And so finding out those networks and finding, if you like, your tribe to make sure that you get the support is necessary, I'm afraid, for underrepresented founders. But it is possible, and there are people there. I'd also give another shout out to TechSpark, who do a lot of support in this area as well.
I think there's clearly a much bigger and continuing issue there. We had a session last year at EntreConf about this. We will next year. One of the barriers, of course, is that much of the fund holders in the broader sense are male, and that may well be lurking deep as the patriarchy. Well, I wasn't, I wasn't looking at that, honest. Thank you. I think we're done for now. We've got to keep to schedule. I've got one last question, which is a negative one, but I'm looking for you to take the positives from it. When you have spoken with clients in different ways, or when you've had applications for grants or equity, and they've been turned down, what are the reasons from that? And is it more a case of they're turned down initially, but they come back with a shaped offering in a way that works? I'll ask you first, Richard.
Most commonly it's because they're just not aligned, and they haven't got the awareness to align themselves to the potential investor. Unfortunately, there are people out there who will give a very dismissive put down because they're not interested. However, there are enough good people out there, so go find the good people and get good advice to help you push forward.
Someone over lunch mentioned the infamous Chumbawamba song, "I get knocked down, but I get back up again." I think that's exactly what it means when it comes to funding. Ollie or Ben, initial rejection or indeed complete rejection, why have you, or not personally, your organisations, why have you said no, and what have they learned from being told no at that stage?
Yeah, so I guess it's splitting the two pools of capital. So on the sort of more established, profitable business side, the most common reasons probably the lack of differentiation with other businesses that are out there, and it's hard to sort of continue that dialogue. But on the occasions that people have gone away, created a new arm of the business which helps address that, and we have had successful investments as a result. On the slightly earlier stage venture aspect, the most common reason we don't proceed is that it's just slightly too early stage for us. It's maybe just on that cusp, and so it's that one we will continue the dialogue.
Broadly, Ben, similar?
It's hard to disagree with any of that. What I would say is, rather than getting knocked down, getting picked up again, getting knocked down, is go and talk to people who've been knocked down before you, so you don't have to fall down. Get that advice early. Go and talk to people who've done it, been there, and got all the bruises, so you don't have to. It'll make everything quicker, easier, and less painful.
Thank you. In many ways, when it comes to funding, it's probably more true of almost any other area of entrepreneurialism that high-quality advice early is the most valuable of all, because it may well be, no, that isn't right, but that might be. I think what we've heard today is that there are multiple sources of capital, different forms of investment, different forms of funding for entrepreneurial businesses. It's a question of matching what you wish, what you need, with what's available and what they wish and how they are structured to deliver that value. To our three experts today, thank you so much to Richard Spilsbury of Linkstone Advisory, Ollie Cox of Foresight, and Ben Masheder of Innovate UK. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.